Good morning, everyone. We're just waiting. People are starting to come through into the session now. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes and allow some people to enter into the platform, and we'll get started real shortly. But thanks for being on the line with us today. We might go ahead and get started because we do have quite a lot to get through today. I'm sure that there's still a few people coming through. I can see coming up in the participant line. So we'll let that number keep growing, but we might just give a bit of a start with some of our introductions here this morning. So first of all, as I said, thank you so much for joining us. And it's a pleasure to have you here with us for what is, I think, a really, really important session today that we'll work our way through. First of all, however, can I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the lands on which we gather? I'm coming to you from the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. And I also extend that respects to all of the custodians of the lands on which we're all gathered from in all the different places that we're joining in from today. As I said, this is a really, really important session that we have today in engaging mature age workers in our staff complement. Now, before I forget, just a couple of little housekeeping rules. First of all, your microphone has been muted, and of course your camera is turned off. So those of you who have joined us before for webinars, this is all kind of normal practice. Just wanted to also let you know today, ladies and gentlemen, that we are recording our session, and we will be sharing this with everyone after the event today, but also we'll post it up on our website so that you can refer back to it for a period of time. You know, we've heard so much from so many of you over a period of time about the importance of webinars like this to be able to bring special information, special news flashes, but also a lot of really important training and education to you, our members. And I would like to sincerely thank all of our partners. You can see there we have a collection of corporate partners that work with us regularly, and it's because of their generosity that we are able to do the things that we do on behalf of the industry. So a big thank you and a big shout out to all of our partners that you can see there today. Talking about some of the most critical issues, of course, right now, the one thing we hear constantly is that there is no issue with demand in our industry. The issue right now is being able to service that demand. And the biggest problem we have, of course, is finding staff. And at this point, it's not even so much about qualified staff. People are just desperate to find people to work in their business. And what has happened through all of that is, thankfully, people have started to consider other options than the traditional resources that our industry has relied on so heavily over many years. In particular, the resources from international employees that we bring via international students or backpackers or 457 visa holders. But today, we're here to talk about the mature age workforce and how that can really help us in solving and addressing some really critical problems when it comes to staff shortages. The biggest issue, however, that we hear from everyone is just, I don't know how to start, where to start. How do I properly engage with a cohort that I'm probably not used to speaking to get them to work in our business? So we're really privileged today to have a great panel of experts with a great deal of experience in this space who will talk to us about their ideas, their own personal experiences in their businesses, and hopefully give you some great ideas that you can apply in your own business. And we're going to start, first of all, by introducing our wonderful facilitator for today. I'm going to hand you over to Bronwyn White from New Young Consulting. Bronwyn is a travel and tourism industry veteran. Starting her career at Qantas, I love this, Bronwyn, when they still had smoking sections in the cabin. There's some of us who do remember those days, and I used to love that there were smoking and non-smoking sections in a plane. Yeah, that was useful. Fax machines were going to be the death of the mice industry, and she would grab her cappuccino from the one cafe in De Grave Street out the back of the Qantas 233 at Collins Street. Shows how long that goes back to as well, Bronwyn, because they haven't been there for quite a long time. More recently, Bronwyn has become Australia's leading senior and baby boomer research and marketing specialist, focusing on serving baby boomers across travel, tourism, and the cruise industries. So welcome to you, Bronwyn, and thank you so much for joining us today to facilitate the session.
And thanks for having me, Felicia. It's terrific to be here and, be able to talk about my favourite topic, people aged over 55, of which I have been researching pretty solidly for the last 20 years. So thanks for having me. Should we go to the next slide? Am I on? Yep. Okay. So, so thanks for joining us today, everybody. This is the hottest topic in not only the travel, tourism, hospitality industry, but everywhere right now. So I feel that we're really privileged to really kind of potentially have the silver bullet here. And people like David and I have been singing from the rooftops about this for years and years. So we're really excited that that people have kind of seen the light. Now, today on our panel, we are really lucky to have Barry Iddles, who came to light a couple of weeks ago. He is Australia's latest media sensation when he featured in The Age and The Herald and on lots of television programs, where he has been showcasing his wonderful mature age, or I should call it the intergenerational workforce in his hospitality and catering industry. And what is so wonderful is that Barry has had such an amazing influx of staff, is that he's expanded, opened 2 more businesses and created a recruitment company. So this is in the last month. So a lot's happened in Barry's life. And we also have Colleen Starrick from Bunnings. And Colleen has been doing this for years and years, and that is recruiting an intergenerational workforce featuring around, 26% of the workforce is aged over 50, and they've been doing this forever. It's not new to them. So we're going to hear from someone new and someone who's been doing this for a very, very long time. And we're very, very lucky to have David Tarr, who is also a travel and tourism industry veteran. So David and I go way back with Felicia. Felicia used to be our boss at Tourism New South Wales. And so that was also a very long time ago. I don't know if they still had smoking in these cabins back then, but it was a while back. And David's story is wonderful. We're going to hear about that a little bit later on. So he's the founder and CEO of a company called Maturius. And it's a Sydney-based tech startup company specialising in the capability, profiling, matching and hiring of mature age talent. And Maturius' core purpose is to create employment for all ages by eliminating ageism and bias in talent assessment and hiring practices to create equal employment opportunities for mature age women and men based on merit. And he's created this company wholly and solely based on his own personal experiences of biases and I guess discrimination. He looks fabulous on paper and has all the credentials and experience you need. But when you look at him, he's got a few wrinkles. So what he'll share later on is when he got to interviewing stage, the biases just came in. And even though he was the best person for the job, I know David, and he would have been so experienced, that's the only reason he wasn't getting the job. And this happened over and over. So he's going to tell us a little bit about that later on. So this is the panel today, bit of housekeeping. What we're going to do today is if you have questions along the way, and those questions are on the topic that we're talking about, feel free to pop them in the Q&A panel. Now, they must go in the Q&A panel, not the comments, because we're only reading Q&A today. So remember, if they're on topic, pop them up there. If they're off topic, we'll address them later on. So post your Q&A, and then what we're going to do after the panel is have a sort of lengthy 20-minute Q&A session, because I think we'll have a lot of questions to be asked at the end of this session. So we're going to talk about how to attract staff and retain staff. And that goes two ways. So it's not just about getting labour, it's about being a flexible, good employer. So what that means is that, yes, we've got a pool of staff here to tap into, but maybe we're going to, as employers, have to adjust our practices as well to meet the market. And tips to start recruiting right now, like literally, Barry has shown how we can get heaps and heaps of staff over the summertime. So next slide, please, Meg. But what I'm going to start with is visually. I think it really helps to see why we're here and why this is happening. So I've got a really boring looking graph here, but this boring chart tells the most amazing story. It is Australia's birth chart over the ages, over the years. So if you have a look down here, so down the bottom here, we've got the years, and then we have the, down the side, we've got the birth rate. So if you have a look in the 1950s, 60s and 70s, that was the World War II, post-World War II baby boom. So you may have heard the term baby boomer, and a lot of younger people don't really know what a baby boomer is. So why we see such large numbers here in this generational cohort is that after World War II, if you consider we had millions of men around the Western world fighting the wars, they came back after the war to, you know, to their wives and girlfriends. Basically, there was a lot of shagging going on. So all this shagging resulted in the baby boom. So you can see there was a whole lot of people being born in the 50s and 60s and 70s. These are your pool. This is your staff sitting right here now and ready to go. And what we can see that happened is the contraceptive pill came in about 1960s, late 60s, and all that we could shag all we wanted, but the implication of getting pregnant wasn't going to happen. So that is why we will never, ever have so many people being born again. And, you know, it's a bit sort of demography 101, but you can see where the millennials are. The pool of young workers is just not there anymore. And in the absence of immigration and international students coming in and transient workforce from overseas, right now, this is all we've got to work with. So today is all about how do we tap into that post-World War II baby boomer boom of workforce. Now, you might be thinking, oh, they're all old retirees and you know, why on earth would, you know, they're slow and so forth. But I want to sort of talk a little bit about the concept of retirement in the modern day. So the reason retirement came about, it was invented in the late 1880s by a German chancellor who owned all the factories in Germany. And he and the government wanted to give their workers a few months at home before they died, because they'd been working in the factories for ages, for many, many years, and essentially basically went home at the age of around 50 to die. So they thought, oh, well, we'll give them a few months, up to a year, and we'll pay them, you know, just so that they can convalesce at home and whatnot. That was in 1880. We're still doing that. So that 6 months at home of retirement has turned into 30 years of a long and healthy and a really good quality of life. So that is why we shouldn't look at them as a retired workforce per se. They're actually a group of really healthy, inspiring, ready to work people. Now, not all of them want to work. Not all of them are available. So we've got probably a pool of retired and semi-retired people. We've got people that are just looking for work, that, you know, looking to fill in some time. Not all of them are pensioners. They may or may not be pensioners. They may be just looking to earn a few extra dollars. We're getting divorcees increasing as well in the plus 50 age bracket. They might just be looking for a bit of extra cash. So this is the people we're dealing with right now. So what I might do is go to the panel and let's get started. So what I want to do now is get the panel to talk us through their own experiences in employing a workforce that's age positive, intergenerational. And I might start with you, Barry, because that's where it all sort of came about.
Yes, good morning, Bronwyn and everybody else. Our intergenerational team ranges between the age of 15 and 78. So we've got a broad spectrum of people. And how it came about was I was in Port Douglas, went into a cafe which was owned by a friend of mine, and she was struggling for staff. There was a queue of people in front of me. She didn't know I was there. And the lady in front of me said, "Oh my God, this is out of control. All of the tables are messy." Karen walked up and snapped and said, "I won't be long. I'm very busy. I don't have enough staff." She probably had enough but needed to train them. Anyway, the lady in front turned around and said, "Oh, this is a shit show." And she goes, "Oh my God, Barry from Sorrento." And I went, "Hi, Anne. I know Karen very well. I'm going to go and clear some tables for you." Karen snapped at me, "What are you doing?" And then realised who it was, said, "Keep going." I cleared heaps of tables so that all the guests in front of me could take a seat. One guy said to me, "How old are you?" And I went, 67. He said, "I came for a job here and she wouldn't let me have one. Are you married to her?" And I go, "Oh, she wishes." However, he said, I got chatting to him and he said, "Well, I'm not 67. I want to go around Australia and I thought it'd be a good way to supplement my income." My daughter had just travelled around for the last 3 months, and she said to me, "Dad, the only people working in the outback are baby boomers and grey nomads, and they're the only staff they can get because there is no international backpackers." I came home and I'd listened to all businesses saying there's no workers. I'm a great believer in the law of attraction. Now, if you get up every day of the week and say there's no workers, you're not going to get anyone. It's like going for a car park. If I focus on getting a car park in front of a post office, I always get one. So I decided rather than waste my money on my winter postcard, I'd double the bang for my buck. On the back of the postcard, which was promoting everything that we were doing at 360 for winter, I put on the back saying, "We're recruiting. Juniors, come and learn the art of hospitality. Millennials, come and show us what you can do. And retirees, come back into the workforce 1 or 2 shifts a week." The cards went out to 42,000 people. Now, my area that I've recruited, my retirees are in my immediate area, so I could have done it a lot cheaper on the postcard, but I would have only needed to send out about 8,000, but I was promoting winter for the restaurant. I received 12 applicants from seniors and mature age, 4 from juniors, and the most amazing recruit I got was Hayley, my manager, who's 44 and from the Bowery Group in New York. She is the biggest asset I've ever had in my business. So retirees, my mature age, started coming in, and we put them all through RSA, so they now all have a responsible service of alcohol. We buddied them up with a supervisor to learn, because we had, retired nurse at 70 years of age who has never worked a day in hospitality. And nearly as 70, She took it like duck to water. She's fantastic on functions. Like Saturday night, we had an event in Portsea, which is across the bay for anyone that knows the Bellarine and Mornington Peninsula. So we took them over on the ferry, finished the shift at 10 p.m. and brought them home on a dive boat at 10:30, 8 minutes from Portsea back to Queenscliff, which the ferry is 45 minutes. So they had a fantastic night out. The banter between all team members is absolutely amazing. The camaraderie between them is incredible. One of our kitchen hands, Kenton. Now, Kenton has an import business. With COVID, it knocked him around. Instead of getting, 20 shipping containers a month, he was getting one per month. He's an absolute cracker. He's said to me, I've only got 2 speeds, stop, dead slow and stopped. But he takes out, him and his wife decided they both go back to work. And so he works 3 shifts a week to support his income for his import business. So containers are starting to come back, but he'll always do 3 or 4 shifts a week. He's an integral part in the team. He invites chefs, juniors and front of house members out to their house for dinner parties. So it's given them a new lease of life, as in, everyone learns off everybody else. The banter, just incredible. The success of what I've achieved from recruiting Mature Age is that we've got 45 team members now, and I had too many, so I've decided we'd take on Wolf Street Pantry, which is an ice cream shop, and then I bought the shelter shed down the main street, which was a struggling business, which we'll refire that up straight after Christmas, probably 1st of Jan we'll open it. But and then there's other businesses around town that have jumped on the bandwagon. I've pimped out a couple of people that have applied that we didn't have jobs for. And so like Panache have taken on 2. Circa down the main street was struggling for staff everywhere. And they said, once they saw me on the ABC News, they changed their wording into retirees, baby boomers, come back to the workforce 1 or 2 shifts a week. And they got 8 applicants on the first day.
I think that's really important to consider as well, because in a sense, it's like a targeted marketing campaign where you are speaking to your ideal market or your ideal worker in your case. And I love that. And I think that it just, as a marketer, it makes perfect sense. So I love how you sort of spoke to them saying 1 or 2 shifts a week. I'd love the Gen Z, we're happy to train you and get a foot in the door. You actually spoke to the pain points and even millennials, you could talk to mums if you want something during school hours. So it's really important, the messaging in how you are recruiting these people. And the other takeout I get from Barry is that he attracted people that were not in the job market. They didn't even know that they were looking for a job until they happened upon Barry's postcard. So again, we're not necessarily attracting job seekers. We're providing a trigger for people to go, oh yeah, that sounds like fun for 1 or 2 days. I just want to get out of the house. And I know that's something you do, Colleen, as well at Bunnings. Yeah. So talk me through that. So how does that work on a bigger scale at Bunnings?
Yeah, I think while we're talking about mature age team members, Bunnings aims to represent the local community that we serve. So we have a variety of different age groups, a bit like Barry, starting at 15, and our oldest team member is 91. But in particular, with mature age team members, as you said before, 26% of our team are over 50. And mature age team members are, really valued by our customers. They've got some great life experience and some great work experience. So they're great to have, you know, in our team. But one way that we've recently tried to attract some mature age team members, and I think particularly post-COVID as well, and because I think gone are the days where you just put a job up on Seek and, you know, people apply. You do need to get a little bit smarter. So we developed some posters for our stores, and that was actually free to do. So the posters involved having photos of our mature age team members and talking a little bit about what they did prior to coming to Bunnings, and also what they do at Bunnings at the moment, and the QR code that took them straight to the Bunnings career site, because not everyone is actually looking for a job. But having those posters in stores just sort of created that, oh yeah, I wouldn't mind working for Bunnings a couple of days a week. So potentially you're attracting people to the workplace that hadn't actually considered working with us before.
That's really interesting. And I love, so with your posters, so you have, again, coming down to basic marketing principles and visuals, do you have people that look like me? So you might have a person, a 60-year-old man or a lady.
Yeah.
Sort of on that poster, it's the same as, you know, target marketing.
Yeah, and people need to be able to see themselves particularly when they come into a Bunnings store. If they can see themselves there, they sort of think, well, I can see myself. They're obviously value mature age team members, so I might apply for a job at Bunnings. Yeah,
and I love how you've said that your workforce is reflective of the general population, and that's really, really important. And you know, the over 55s are 26% spot on of Australia's population right now, which is really, really exciting. So I love here. So to me, these takeouts from Barry and Colleen right now is cheap. It doesn't have to cost you a lot of money. Maybe, you know, you can make your posters up on Canva, post them around your restaurant, your travel and tourism facility, hotel. Barry went out on a postcard, and the other thing that Barry has sort of talked to me about is using his database. So he actually uses his customer database to recruit now, with similar sort of messages, with the images that look like me, with the call to action to someone like me. We've got a question here from Leanne, and it might be a good one for David, actually, because I know you've done a lot on this stuff. How do you manage the potential challenges of a mature age workforce, such as physical ability and cognition?
You want me to go for that?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, oh, Colleen.
That's an interesting question and says a lot in itself.
You go, Colleen, I'll follow.
Okay, no problems. Look, I think we've introduced a number of things to support our team at different stages of their career. And in particular with our mature age workforce, there's a number of initiatives that we've introduced to support them. One of the ones we've introduced is what we call our retiring well sessions. So that's to support our mature age workers, whether they're going to retire in 1 year or 12 years, and to really support them on that journey of financial, also fitness and mental health and nutrition as well. Also offering flexible hours as well, a bit like what Barry said before. You know, it's not about just all working full time, it's just about that opportunity to work a couple of shifts and to be able to work flexibly. The other thing we did actually for the first time this year is introduce some information to our team around menopause. And that was to really create some awareness for our team, but also some education for our leaders on how to support our mature age women, because 50% of our workforce are women. So it was a really great opportunity to really introduce that language into our business and to sort of keep on having that conversation as well. And probably the final one is, you know, as I said before, like, you know, God are the days where people retire at 55 and get in their caravan and, you know, drive around Australia. So we've introduced a program at Bunnings, which has been very successful, called the Travelling Team Member. And that supports team members working at Bunnings stores all over Australia and being able to, travel in between and work a couple of different shifts at different stores as they travel around Australia as well. So you might be working, only a couple of months of the year, but you're still actually getting a couple of shifts in and paying for that petrol or paying for your holiday parks as well.
I love that. And that is just taking it next level. It is amazing. And I can see how this could work for a core, a big group like a core or any sort of chain to be able to do this. It just makes perfect sense. I mean, they were screaming for workers up in far north Queensland, as Barry said. It's freezing cold down here in Melbourne. They can all go up and work in a core Palm Cove, it's totally adaptable. And in terms of cognitive and being slow, what do you reckon about Barry? Barry doesn't look slow to me.
Look, I'm 67. I've got plenty of spring in my step, and maybe I could send some of my oldies, my age, up far north Queensland to Karen to help her out.
Karen needs a bit of help, and she really was called Karen, wasn't she?
She really was Karen, but she's not from Brighton.
She's not from Brighton.
She was from St Kilda.
David, what do you think about all this?
Look, I think the question around, cognitive ability is a really interesting one, primarily because there's a lot of misconceptions about people as they age and their ability to learn and their general aptitude, which are all false. And what they do is create negative stereotypes about mature age people through the different stages of their life. And one of the interesting things about mature age workers is that they actually hold a higher level of crystallized intelligence, which are called, also referenced as meta competencies. So that's really the panacea of capabilities from a soft skill perspective, and their ability to continually learn is really interesting. And the one that comes up for us a lot is, particularly when you're looking at a younger cohort in a workforce, is around digital literacy. And one of the things that positives that's come out of COVID as it has accelerated everybody's digital literacy, particularly from an online perspective. But mature age people obviously will never be and never were digital natives. They were digital immigrants. So they had to find a different way to learn. And so I think the interesting thing is when you're looking at workforces and training and development, the different learning pathways and programs, all of those things need to be taken into consideration when you're talking about cognitive ability, but importantly, developing that to actually progress your workforce and be a very competitive workforce, but also deliver really strong client appreciation.
And that's a really good point, being digital native versus other. The thing about this generation, we may not be digital natives, but we were in the workforce when computers came in. So imagine not being born with a computer in your hand, an Apple in your hand, right? So one day I was sitting at Qantas 233 Collins Street, for example. I'll be out the back typing my typewriter. And then one day this big thing called a computer landed on my desk. We forged the way. We need a bit of kudos because not only did we sort of have to go through the hard work of learning about this new computer, every time there was an update, it wasn't just a press on and off. We had to learn a whole new system. So if there's one thing about this generation of people is that we are adaptable, more than adaptable to technology, because we forged the way. We are pioneers. So the whole thing about, is this workforce, they're not tech savvy. That's a total load of BS because we forged the way. We're in the workplace when computers came in. So we have felt the pain. So that's great. So one of the things I want to talk about now is, it's not just about attracting this workforce. It's also about being a good employer because, again, much of this workforce does not need the work. So, being a good employer is a big part of it. So tell me what this looks like to you. So maybe Barry. So I feel you're like you were talking about the law of attraction. What does that mean, and being a good place to work?
Look, my daughter always says to me, if you've got a problem, the universe always provides. And so it certainly does. Look, we look after our team really well, and the flexibility of hospitality, you know, people, the comment before about, you know, age generation, getting into workforce. So my 78-year-old, we don't want her to work a 12-hour shift. She applied 4 times for a position. So I admired her. She's very fit. She swims every day. She works 3 hours, a couple of days a week. We're flexible at that rate. They're paid above the award. We look after them. We feed them. It's a great thing. And rather than singing Kumbaya by the piano, they're in here having banter with the team. I think it's. I think having that flexibility of a 2-hour, 5-hour, whatever shift, and having the flexibility to give them light tasks, medium tasks, or heavy tasks. Being flexible and understanding each person's capabilities.
That sounds fabulous. So you really are meeting the workforce.
Well, when my team said to me, oh, you know, don't you think she's a little old? And I went, no, over summer, we are so busy. I don't mind if she stands in the corner and picks parsley and mint. Like we go through a lot of picked herbs in an Asian style restaurant.
Absolutely. There's a job for everybody, isn't there? I love that. And what about Bunnings? How does that work? How is being a good employer at Bunnings?
Yeah, and I guess in addition to the programs that I've already talked about to support our older workers, it is about creating that culture of inclusion, regardless of what stage of your career that you're at. But I think it's also really making sure that our team are aware that that we value that diversity of thought as well. So it is valuing the younger team members' ideas and what they bring to our business, as well as what that life experience that our mature age team members bring as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know that the big end of town, how are they embracing it, David?
Yeah, really good question. Like, it's interesting. It doesn't really matter if it's the big end of town or the medium end of town or the small end of town. The majority of organisations aren't set up to actually support a mature age workforce. And what does that mean? They're not age ready.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, like we work predominantly in professional and financial services, and so we, Big Four consulting companies. And all of their, recruitment processes are all geared around a younger cohort. So those sort of, what we call them antiquated recruitment processes that aren't designed to be higher age positively. So, and
how does that work? Because I know I've heard Barry talk about in terms of you don't do interviews. So,
no.
So what does that look like, a recruitment process for an older worker?
Well, the first thing is about, and I think this was mentioned earlier, I think Pauline might have mentioned it, just around age-positive recruitment campaigns. So that campaign is, the language isn't really important. So, when you read, we're looking for a gun to do this and some rock star and rubbish language like that, which is all very biased. Yeah, and then when you see, job ads that say you must have a degree, that's another eliminator as well. And then you've got to put in the right imagery. But importantly, a lot of mature age people are very, very discerning. So they'll go to your website and you go to your website and they see there's no mature age people on your website. And so what that says is that you aren't, walking the talk. And so you've got to really focus on that. Then you have to minimise the age bias process in recruitment. Now, just because you think that there's an opportunity, you also have to recognise that 1 in 2 people, this is by World Health Organization, research, 1 in 2 people are biased towards age.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so you have to be able to say, well, we're going to actually build an age positive, culture. And I'm sure that's, obviously what Bunnings have been doing, but recognizing age in your diversity, equity and inclusion strategy, because, at the bigger end of town, and this is global as well, only 6% of organizations actually recognize age in their diversity and inclusion strategy. Now, if you don't recognize age, how can you develop an employee value proposition? How can you hire age positively? And how can you talk about healthy aging and career development for mature age if it's not recognised? So we work really hard and very much in a partnership environment to set up that workplace for success. Like, our technology is unique and does a great job, but when 3 out of 5 people have experienced age discrimination through either the hiring process or the workplace, we want to work with employers that are age friendly and can go into an environment that actually works and teach them how to use that to attract really good people.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing definitely with Barry and Colleen at Bunnings as well. I can see the difference, and I love that Barry, you say you don't interview people, you just have a bit of a chat, and for you, life experience, and I see that with you as well, Colleen. It's about the life experience that sits behind the person, the older employee. And also, I love what you said, that if you've run a household of 4 kids, that's pretty good experience as well. So that tells a lot about your experience. So right now, I guess we're getting into Q&A time. Do we have any questions? And I'm not seeing any in my box. No questions there. We can keep having a chat. This is really unusual. Is everyone just dumbfounded? Is anybody inspired? Like, is anybody going to go off and put some of these things together and start employing? Hang on, we've got... Could David repeat the crystal? I missed that word. I like that too. Higher crystallised?
Crystallised intelligence.
Crystallised intelligence.
Look it up, yeah. It's
what does that mean exactly?
Well, what happens is we reach a point in time in our lives, which is about 38, where our sort of, what we've learned throughout our education period, it reaches a point where it almost peaks and then it consolidates. So it consolidates after sort of 39, 40, and so it accumulates in knowledge. And as you're older, you accumulate more crystallized intelligence.
Awesome. Thank you, Marie. Really interesting, guys. Enjoying your views. Done that. So Carl, hi Carl. What are the rules around pensioners getting wages? Are these rules expected to change soon? I think we've just had recent legislation change on that. Colleen, you seem to, you're nodding, what's happening?
Oh no, I've heard about it in the media. I think that is a restriction for some people. And as you mentioned before, not everyone's on a pension. So, and I think what we find at Bunnings is it's also not just about the dollars that they're earning. It's really also about the socialisation. And that's why we see sometimes people coming back to Bunnings for their second career. So they've retired from their first career. And then, retirement's potentially not what they thought it was going to be. That golf that they thought they were going to play every week becomes, a bit boring after a year or two. And they start looking for, I really love going to work. I really loved meeting people and talking to people every day. So for us, it's also about that aspect of it. And that's really what keeps some of our mature age team members working for as long as they do with us.
That's great. We're getting lots of thank yous. Sorry,
Bronwyn, can I just jump in 1 second just on that last question? So I'm trying to get my camera back on, but it's not working. There we go. There has been some changes to the rules around pensioners, but the changes, and they're allowed to earn more money than they were previously. That was the inhibitor. but it is only for the current financial year. The federal government is actually trialing the program, so it won't go beyond the current financial at this stage. But I think the important point here to think about is not every retiree is a pensioner. Pensioners are a small proportion of the retired population. There are a lot of people that are retired or semi-retired that are not pensioners. And what we're talking about here, and really I found it quite fascinating, the conversation with David, because David, I think the other day you mentioned that, the definition of a mature age worker is 45 plus. At 45, these people are not retired, but yet they are considered mature age workers. So this gets back to this, take the blinkers off, guys, and broaden the perspective on how this can work, because it's not just about, and God, I hate the term gold grey nomads. Can we please, if anybody's on the call from the caravan and camping sector, can you please change that? I seriously, that is one thing that absolutely grates on my nerves, is that term. But anyway, let's get past that, Felicia. But the fact is that there's a whole cohort beyond that 65 plus that sits in that probably 45 to 55 age group. That is what we're really talking about here. And then you've got the retirees, and yes, we've got pensioners, but it is a really small proportion of the population that we're talking about engaging as our workforce right now. So we've got to, spread those blinkers out a little bit further and think a bit more broadly.
That's great. So we have quite a few questions now. Paula, hang on. Once you have recruited a person, do you onboard them any differently to everyone else?
No. We have our onboarding, and as an equal opportunity employer, we onboard everyone exactly the same way. Our philosophies and ethos with the business, think like a customer. And I suppose for our mature age, we show them where the exhaust fan is that you've got to turn off for in case of a fire. They're all mentored, so everyone's done exactly the same way from the age of 15 right through.
Colleen?
Yep, no, we're the same. So whether you're someone who's starting in a tech role in our store support, or whether you're a 16-year-old casual starting in one of our stores, everyone goes through induction together. And the same information is provided about, who Bunnings is, and they come in and go through induction together as well. So
great. And we have one here. This will be a good one for you, David. How do we go about educating industries to overcome age discrimination practices?
Yeah, look, I think it's interesting. Like, we do a lot of work in the UK, and I would say, and this is probably common around many facets between the UK and Australia, but UK is like 5 or 6 years ahead of Australia from an industry perspective and business perspective. So what we see in the UK is, and the US, is actually running age-friendly accreditation program, and we'll be launching our age-friendly accreditation program in February, March next year. But the thing is, organisations need to adopt that, whether you're a council, whether you're an industry group, and take a leadership position, and then the industry follows you. And so having those tools, and like I provided a link that Roman's going to share later, even if you go to the Age Discrimination Commission's website, there's a whole heap of resources on there about how to be an age-friendly employer, how to build an age generational workforce, and things that what a mature age workers actually want. So there's no shortage of resources out there. And the thing is, like any form of diversity, and Colleen will test this as well, anyone that's has inherent knowledge, they've already got that. But people who acquire new knowledge, they've become the advocates and channels to say, actually, ageism is not cool. And the thing is, like, it's sort of the last form of accepted discrimination, and it needs to be called out and needs to be challenged at every situation. And even look, I was flying back from Adelaide on Thursday, and when you get off the aisle and quickly, and I was grabbing my backpack, and the guy behind me was clearly going to go out, and he says to me, a young guy, he goes, well, age before beauty. And I thought, that's not cool, mate. Like, don't talk to me like that. I didn't say don't talk to me like that, but it's not cool. And that might sound quite harmless, but it's actually wrong. And all it does is reinforce negative stereotypes. So we all have a responsibility. What I'm saying.
Well said. Well said. We have a question from Fiona, and this is a really good one. I have actually seen research done with an airline around this. How do you manage the socialization between Gen Z and baby boomers? I know many who have had little engagement with older people at all. Are there any tips? Who wants to answer this? Barry?
Oh, look, all of my, look, from my 15-year-old to 78, they all have, they're all learning. I mean, at 78, they're learning, at 15, they're learning. And I think it's been amazing, the journey that we've had here, and everyone just gets on incredibly well. So I think everybody learns from each other right through the team. It's quite simple.
Yeah, and I think we're the same as well, Bronwyn. It's and it works both ways. So those life skills are, you know, are a great resource for our younger team, but also our younger team can also teach our older workers a lot of things as well. So it's a great opportunity to mentor both ways.
Yeah, and I love that, because both of you have said that the older employees almost act as an unofficial mentor to the younger ones, and they have a lot in common. And we've actually seen this in research where there are more similarities between baby boomers and Gen Z than people in between. So they connect really well, as opposed to a baby boomer and a millennial. So they've actually got a lot at the core in common in the way they are and who they are. We have an awesome question for you, David. Specifically to you, how does David's business work?
How does that business work? So we're a talent as a service platform, and the way it works is a mature age person creates a profile. So on our platform, what it does is it measures the depth and breadth of your accumulated capabilities throughout your whole working career. So on average, a mature age person's had about 10 jobs by the time they turn 50. And so the default position for people when they write a CV is they try to hide their age and they don't put all their jobs in place. And the thing is, what we've been able to demonstrate, and we've done this through this process, is that those accumulated capabilities are multidimensional and transferable across different job verticals and occupations, which is part of our value proposition to employers. So effectively what we do is we map your job DNA, you create a profile, you rate proficiency across skills and knowledge and frequency of work activities. You tell us about what your employment, about yourself, you tell us about your professional goals, which talks about aptitude. You talk about your ideal job and your ideal workplace, which goes to values and culture. The output of that is the one-page capability profile, which produces the talent value score. If you go on our website, you can watch a video and you can get a bit more information. That's great to deal with, you know, giving mature age people an opportunity to showcase all their capabilities, but it doesn't deal with the situation we have around bias and discrimination in the hiring process, which is traditionally driven by, you know, job descriptions that mean nothing and cut and paste situation, and also unconscious bias in the recruitment process. So on the other side of our platform, employers create what we call an ideal candidate profile. So they rate the attributes for a candidate to be successful and valuable in a role. We can rate up to 126 attributes, but on average jobs between 45 and 55. They rate proficiency, skills, knowledge, and frequency of work activities. The output of that is the talent value score, and then we match the closest job DNA and shortlist people as viable candidate profiles. It's very quick, very effective, and it's very accurate, and that's why we get good take up and good traction, but it eliminates the bias through the actual acquisition process, but there's still risk, obviously, in the review and hiring process. But we work with our clients. You know, saying about being age ready, we work with them to actually ensure that they get the best out of the process, and their mature age workers will become long-term employees.
Fantastic. And is it a subscription service? How does it work? How
employees pay.
Employee or employers? Employees?
No, employers pay. So the business pays, and the candidates, it's free for candidates. Like, we do a lot of work with what was previously Job Active, Workforce Australia. There's a huge amount of mature age people. Like in February 21, there was 337,000 people 50 plus registered on Centrelink at a 53% increase year on year from February 20. That number now is sitting around about 284,000 people. And so if that doesn't include people 45 to 50. So there is this hidden talent economy that, you know, obviously Barry's tapping into. You know, Bunnings have been streets ahead of everyone else for a long time now. But, you know, there is an enormous amount of people out there, if you get the process right, and are actually genuine about hiring mature age people and providing meaningful employment.
Great, thank you. And I think that pretty well caps off all of our questions. I don't see any more questions here. Felicia, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just probably just in wrap up, first of all, to thank each and every one of the panel members. I think you have given so much thought-provoking insight. I know, Ron, when you talked about being inspired, I do hope that some people are inspired here to try something different. You know, what the thing that kept going through my mind as we were talking is the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result.
Yep.
And here we are doing the same thing over and over again, and we're not getting a different result. But, you know, we have an opportunity here to break the mold. We've got two people here that I think are probably exemplars in doing things differently, looking at the world a little bit differently. David, I love that you've started working on the other side of the fence to actually help in coaching businesses to understand that there are different ways that you need to employ to be engaging with this particular cohort, and that there still is a great deal to be offered. I mean, I still am astounded that 45 plus in this day and age is considered mature age workforce. When you consider that people are living today well into their 70s and 80s, very active, very engaged lives, and to think at 45 plus. So, but look, the bottom line is, at least the situation we're in right now is requiring us to have these conversations. You know, a year ago, this type of discussion wasn't even on the agenda, but at least, you know, what again, the expression, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. So hopefully what we have here is the need is actually going to drive a different way for us to behave. So I just wanted to, first of all, thank you all for sharing so much with us today, for being so open in what you're doing. Bronwyn, thank you for your very astute facilitation of our group. You always do a marvelous job. It's a pleasure to always have you working with us. David, I made a little note here about your age-friendly accreditation program. I think offline might have a little bit of a chat with you about this, because I'd like to know how that works. We've obviously run a lot of accreditation programs. This is one that's out of the box, and I'd love to talk to you about how we do something first here in Victoria. And I know that you don't necessarily work with the tourism industry, but maybe we need to change that given our history. And I had to laugh when you said, that's the problem when you're as old as we are, that most everybody's worked for me.
It's true.
So it's good to get the band back together, guys. But seriously, thank you all so very much. Meg, I think we've got a couple of little summary slides. Might just pop that up, and we'll just go through a couple of last minute things. As I mentioned in the beginning, we've been recording this discussion, and we'll be distributing that to everyone via email, but I'll also make sure that we get that loaded up onto our website. I would encourage you to get your colleagues and friends to listen as well. I think there's some really important information here, really some critical tips for us to think about how we look at all of this very differently with a different lens. We have to actually really think outside the box if we're going to get over this employment crisis that we're facing. Just from a VTIC membership point of view, I thank you all. Many of you on this call today are already our members. If you're not, I would encourage you to go online to our website. Under the membership tab, you'll be able to find a really easy way that you can join. There's a great deal of support services that we offer to our members, not the least of which is the Industry Support Hub. If you haven't visited that support hub, the website's there. I again would encourage you to have a look at that. We created this hub during COVID, and of course, there's not as much COVID information on there now, but there is a lot of really critical industry development support information. There's some great wellness tips in there. We work very closely with a mental health and wellness clinician that does a lot of work in our hub. There's just some really good information there around everything that's available to the industry to help you improve your business. So I would encourage people to have a look at that if you haven't done so already. Meg, can you flip to the next one? Thanks. And on behalf of our lovely friends at Bunnings, thank you, Colleen. I know this isn't part of your bailiwick in your role, but we have entered into a wonderful partnership with Bunnings. And for those of you who may or may not be aware, Bunnings has a Trade Power Pass program that our members are able to access. All you have to do, and I know, Barry, you wanted to scan that. Now's your chance while it's up there on the screen. The QR code there, if you scan that, you can download the Power Pass. If you already have one, just to be aware that there is actually a special VTIC price list. So if you already have a Power Pass, this is actually that little bit better because with our partnership with our friends at Bunnings, we've been able to get some really special prices for our VTIC members to purchase their supplies at Bunnings. So would encourage you to do that. And if you do so before the 21st of December, you actually go into the draw to win a $100 Bunnings voucher. So a big thank you to our friends at Bunnings. It's a new partnership, a new relationship, and we're really, really pleased to have you on board. And even more so today, Colleen, thank you so much for the insights that you have shared. I think Bunnings has been a real leader in this space for a very long time. So really glad that you could join us today.
No problems. Thanks for having us.
And I think the next screen might just be a thank you. Oh, sorry, forgot about this. This is why you need the slides to come up. I just wanted to go through quickly. For those on the screen, this is probably most pertinent for our operators in and around the Greater Metro Melbourne region, but we are doing a special insight series on Tuesday next week, where the City of Melbourne and the Department of Transport are going to be talking about their Melbourne summer marketing campaigns. Both the City of Melbourne and Department of Transport have a lot of activities that they've got planned for the summer months to encourage people to come into the city, to help get them around the city quickly and easily. So there'll be a great session that we'll be doing next week on Tuesday, the 13th of December from 10:30 till 11. So I hope you can join us at that point in time. It'd be great to have you online and to learn a little bit about what's happening for our visitors to the city over the summer period. So once again, thank you all so much for being with us today. Thank you again to our panel, to David, to Barry, to Colleen, and to our wonderful facilitator, Bronwyn. Really looking forward to continuing to work with you guys because I do believe this is not just a one-hit wonder thing. We need to continue to get those messages out there, and we need to hold up champions like yourselves who are really doing things differently and really forging a new way of looking at the whole employment crisis issue that we're facing. So thank you. And David, I'll be in touch about the accreditation program. Have a lovely weekend, everyone, and thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.